This is the Rookie Hunter Podcast, and we're recording from Kelowna, British Columbia. If this is your first time listening, this podcast is all about new hunters and their experiences in the BC backcountry. On this episode, Kelly and I are going to talk about hunter reputations, the controversial BC Wolf Cull, bear hunting, and Kelly's favorite topic, equipment. If you'd like to contact us with questions, comments, or show ideas, please send an email to therookihunterpodcast@gmail.com. You can also connect with us on Twitter and Instagram. We're trying to reach more listeners, so if you like what we're doing, please leave a rating or review on iTunes. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy episode 2 of the Rookie Hunter Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Rookie Hunter Podcast. My name is Mike Peterson.
Kelly Molnar.
So if you checked out the first one, Kelly and I sort of just introduced ourselves and gave you a bit of a backstory on our first 2 seasons of hunting. So Kelly and I have only actually had our hunting licenses for about a year and a half. And so if you boil it down, we've only got a good, what would you say, 4.5 months of hunting experience, really.
Mm-hmm.
And we also talked a bit about our upbringings, which are a little bit different, but we grew up in the Kootenays, so we've both been very connected to the outdoors. I had a little bit more hunting experience just because my dad was a hunter, but more or less we're both very new to hunting. So that's the whole point of the show, is to, follow mine and Kelly's adventure in hunting. And we're not experts by any means, but we're going to try and do lots of research on things we're talking about. And we also want to bring in experts and also other rookie hunters and kind of talk about their experiences and find out, what they think about the sport, what they've learned over the years. So I think this is going to be valuable for a range of people. I'm not too sure who our target audience is, but who do you think is going to be enjoying this, Kel?
I hope there's a lot more folks like us that are kind of getting into hunting at a later stage in life.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we're not old,
but 30 is pretty old for, I guess, people going into hunting. Most people started when they're a kid. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people our age that are similar to us. I think it's getting a new reputation, I guess you could say. Yeah,
and we know a couple of guys who are thinking about getting into hunting. So they're kind of at the stage we were a year and a half ago. So I think it might be kind of cool to bring those guys in, talk to them, see how they're feeling. They're probably going to, want to start as the camp cook like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. It'll be neat if we can sort of capture them before and see how they evolve into the sport. So, a year from now, you can listen back to their original thoughts on hunting and how those change once they get into it. So yeah, and then we've got a buddy that we did the hunting, the core, and the firearms licensing program with. I think we're going to get him in on the next one, Corey. And his brother, or is it his brother-in-law, do you know, is a conservation officer. So we haven't asked him, but we're going to see if we can get him on the show too, because obviously he would have a lot of really interesting information to share with us. So those are the things we're working on. We've got a few things we want to talk about today. The first thing I want to bring up with you, Cal, is to see what you think the reputation of a hunter is today. I feel like there's a bit of a mixed review. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when something hits the headlines, like the Cecil the lion and the rhino hunts and those things that take place in Africa, people get upset, but there's always more to these stories. But what do you think if you went and just walked up to the average person on the street and said, hey, what are your thoughts on hunting? Mm-hmm. What do you think they would?
I think because we live in BC, that most people probably have a tolerance for hunting here. Right. I mean, we talked last episode about how we got into hunting and the fact that it was just recently, and before that, I always wondered why people were into it and obsessed with it. And I always kind of looked at it like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna go play some tunes or
Right.
play the guitar or go mountain bike. I'm not interested in that stuff. And I don't know. I have to say, I kind of thought of it as kind of like, well, why would you want to go out there and kill something? Um, like I always had an appreciation for animals
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, but I mean, you kind of part of that is a lack of education, I
Yeah.
think, and then and I think that might be where quite a few folks are. But everybody, a lot of people in BC anyway, have relatives that are hunters, and I think it's kind of a bit of a way of life up here.
Yeah. That's a cool point you made because I know I had the same thought before getting into hunting, and when I was sort of not against it, but just not into doing it myself. And for me, it was always like, well, I'm just happy to observe these animals and see them as a great experience. But now that I've started hunting, I've witnessed so many cool things just
Mm-hmm.
watching these animals and
Yeah,
a
and the
lot of,
animals you're not even hunting, right?
yeah,
Like it's
exactly. So
if you're not putting yourself out there in the situation, then you're not really going to see a lot of that stuff.
there's, we were just talking about this a couple weeks ago, but there was one morning when you and I were out and we came across a group of does. So there was, I can't remember how many of them, but there was quite a few of them. And originally we saw these tracks on it was on a power line, and the tracks were going all over the place in circles and up the bank and all this kind of stuff. We're like, what the fuck's going on? Because they were young deer tracks, so they would have been fawns, and we could tell that. And then we sort of followed them and came up to the top of this power line where we could see down into a bit of a valley, and the deer were running around like dogs in a dog park. It was hilarious, but they're having just a blast chasing each other around, and they had no idea we were even observing them. So it's like you see all these neat things that again you would miss out on them normally.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked a little bit about this last week, where the thing that really got you into hunting was being up in these higher elevations when the trees are turning and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And it reminded me of sort of an experience I had was in that same area you were talking about, was seeing owls really early in the morning and watching them with the binoculars, and they were hunting mice. And
Mm-hmm.
so all these really, really neat things. And a majority of the time, I'd say like 98% of the time, you're not actually shooting animals. You're just out there and observing them in their natural habitat. So like
Mm-hmm.
you almost gain even more respect for animals once you start hunting, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
I guess my short answer to the reputation question would be that I think most people probably think it's a little redneck if you're not a hunter,
yeah.
but I think there is a bit of a more of a tolerance in BC just
Yeah.
because somebody knows somebody that does it.
Yeah, and I think we're sort of your average hunter, I would say. There's a lot of guys like us that to look at us, we might not look like hunters, right? Um, but the guys that I think are the most vocal about hunting and in your face about it are the guys who are the redneck types, right? And I think they're a pretty small group in the overall hunter population,
Mm-hmm.
but those guys can do so much damage to the reputation of hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it when we're out there. You know, these guys are road hunting and they're throwing beer cans out the window, and it just takes one, even just one person to make a huge mess outdoors. And even, I don't know, man, just small things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, it makes people upset, and that reputation spreads further. People are more likely to talk about that than the larger percentage of guys who actually really respect the outdoors and respect the animals. It's just unfortunate, like the people who are most vocal are the ones who are doing stupid shit and kind
Mm-hmm.
of ruining it for everyone else. So I think it's important. Obviously, there's things in place where you can report people and that, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is good. And I wouldn't hesitate to report something that I saw out there because, again, you know, they ruin it for all the responsible hunters. And it's, again, it's a small number. So,
Yeah. Not there's anything wrong with being redneck necessarily,
yeah,
like, but to be disrespectful
Yeah, exactly.
redneck is, or disrespectful anything
And
is, it's not good. It's
yeah,
I like the word outdoorsman,
right.
because that just has like a more respectful quality to it. I think like an outdoorsman to me is somebody that appreciates the outdoors, takes out everything they took in. Um, I mean, they fish, hunt. They're out there for the outdoors
Yeah,
primarily.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, like you say, some people might not be out there for those reasons. Maybe they're out there just to rip around and tear up some dirt and throw a beer can out the
make a
window
bunch of
and shoot a couple
noise. Yeah,
shells, and then they leave, right? And they
yeah,
leave the shells on the ground, and
yeah.
we end up walking around picking them up.
Well, yeah, I remember one of the last days we were out there, my pockets were full of shotgun shells just picking up all this stuff. So
Yeah.
I guess, for the responsible guys, if you see that stuff out, just remember to clean it up, and because it's everyone's reputation on the line when a couple of assholes are doing that. But anyways, I think I feel like the hunting might be at a bit of a turning point, but it's hard to decide if it is or not, because there's also things that hit the headlines, like I said, the Cecil the lion, and the guy that went over and did the rhino hunt. And I've researched that stuff quite a bit, and that's a tough one because I see the benefits for those areas as well. And there's two sides to every story, but I can see why people get upset
Mhm.
when they see these people with a lot of money going over there spending tons of money to buy these tags.
Yeah, like it's a bucket list. I think that's where they go is,
Yeah.
oh, it's just something they want to do on their bucket list, and they think they're killing something is something on the bucket list,
Yeah.
right? But
And for some guys, I think it might be. Um,
mhm.
but I just try to look for the positive in that, and look at what it does for that community, and what's done with the animal. Lions, I don't think you can eat those things, but again, you still have to manage those populations. So I think it also creates populations, or creates problems when people aren't going over there. But
Mhm.
it's just tricky, man, because for us living in Canada, you think of a lion as this, majestic creature,
Mhm.
but it could be the way
Until it's
people.
on your ass.
Yeah, exactly. Or until it's eating your children or something
Yeah,
like that.
and that's pretty common over there, I
Yeah.
think.
So I think
But
to make up your mind, you really have to talk to the people over there, and do a lot of research to find out where that money goes. And I think
mhm.
a lot of it does go into conservation efforts
Yeah,
there. And that's a lot of money for those guys, man. So
yeah, I think it's just the willingness to be open to both sides of the
yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
Um, if you're just going to turn your chair and ignore the facts and say no, it's wrong to kill this rhino, then it's pretty tough to have a conversation about it. But
yeah,
if they turn their chair around and then they realize that, okay, that one rhino was killing the other two rhinos, they're the only three rhinos in the world. They tried relocating it, it didn't work,
yeah,
and now they got to shoot this lion. Anybody could shoot it, but they'll put it up for draw, and then the highest bidder wins 500 grand. All
yeah,
that money goes to conservation of those other two animals, and the food goes to a hut.
yeah,
That's a pretty good deal if you think about it.
yeah. As long as that's the case, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
As long
exactly.
as there isn't some other shit. But as
Yeah.
far as what I've read, it seems like there's benefits, although I understand why people get upset when they see it. But initially, when I saw it too, I'm like, oh Jesus, these trophy hunters and that.
Mhm.
Because Kelly and I are both, we just hunt for meat. That's the only reason why we do it. So yeah, when I see that stuff, I get upset. But then I
Yeah.
research it, and then you start to realize, well, it goes a lot further than that. There's more to it than just a guy spending a bunch of money to trophy hunt. So
Mhm.
it's really complicated, but I understand why people get upset. Um, I brought up a stat on the last episode that I couldn't back up. We were just talking about the money that goes into conservation here, and even trail maintenance and all that. But I think there's roughly 100,000 resident hunters in British Columbia, which generates over $7 million in fees and species permits each year. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I think I put about $50 into that for unused tags last year.
Yeah,
And when I
exactly.
bought the tags, because we don't have much experience, I figured this is going to be a donation.
Yeah, you even said
Whatever.
that.
Yeah, I said that. I mean, I don't have any issues with that. It's going hopefully to a good cause.
And it does. You can go and look up exactly where that money's going if you want to. So
yeah, there's definitely some cash. And the other thing is non-resident. They're also paying those fees if they want to hunt in BC, but it's like 10
more,
times as much money for them to hunt the same animal, and they might not get one either. So.
Yeah. I know there was a bit of an upset with, I think they issued more non-resident tags for this season, which means less opportunities for resident guys. But again, I try and be open to it and think, well, hopefully those guys are coming up and putting money into our economy. I've heard that they don't necessarily because they're kind of up here and they hunt and they fuck off and they're gone and that's it. But I don't know, man. As long as I'm able to kind of, take advantage of our resources and it doesn't become a problem, then I'm okay with it, I guess. But I haven't done a whole lot of research on that side of things.
If we keep missing out on moose tags over the next
then we
years,
can get
then
upset.
we might have a problem. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think those are. There's guys like Stephen Ranella. I think is that sort of came at a cool time, and it's when we just started getting into hunting and just got our licenses that we discovered Ranella, and I think he's doing great things for the hunter community, and he's the only one that I can really watch as far as hunting shows go. You know what I mean? He took such a different approach to what he's doing, and I think anybody can watch that. Like I remember my dad watching some of these hunting shows, and like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like it's kind of got that redneck vibe to it. Those other ones, you know what I mean? And
it's like a webcam of the guy sitting in the blind for
they're brutal
4 hours, and then it just cuts to the kill shot, and then that's the end of the scene, and then it moves to a new one, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think most people have probably heard of Stephen Ranella, but if you haven't, go and find Meat Eater episodes because they're fantastic.
Yeah, it's even the title is very food oriented.
Yeah,
the logo is antlers and they're forks, right? So I think that's why I got into him, was because he was doing it for the exact same reasons that I was, which is hunting for food, but he takes it to a whole new level. He will eat anything.
Yeah,
like coyote. They tried to eat a coyote that one episode. Squirrel, deer, everything.
Yeah.
The coyote was kind of stretching it, which they admitted, but he just wanted to try it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's not like I wouldn't if I had to, you know what I mean? But
I mean, it's all protein. You can eat anything, but yeah, that was a bit of a stretch, but yeah, he's got some cool stuff, and he's got the whole historic perspective too, right? Like he's obsessed with buffalo,
right?
He reads a lot about Daniel Boone and all these guys and how did they used to cook stuff, and like he's got the skull buried in the dirt with a fire, all the hot coals in there, and he'll let that sit there for hours and then pull it out and see how it happened. But that's how they used to do it back in some book that he read, and it's pretty cool stuff.
He's a pretty fascinating dude, and his book helped us quite a bit. It's the guide to, what is it? Big game hunting, butchering, to, something rather. But we had that kind of handy when we brought our first whitetail back to Cal's house, and we were looking into butchering. And it's an excellent book, especially for new hunters like us. So, you can. There's something in it for everybody. I think it's great. There's even recipes and stuff like that. So, anyways, just some useful things that we've come across.
The other guy is like Remy Warren and Solo Hunter.
Yeah.
They're not quite as food oriented, but I find they're still very, like, their thing is they are solo hunters. They film everything by themselves. They go out and they archery hunt for the most part. One person doing all of that stuff. And getting a shot of them hitting a deer.
That's a lot of work,
bow.
Man.
It's insane that they're they can manage to do that. But they're also very respectful hunters, and they're obsessed with the outdoors, and they just live there.
Yeah.
So I really like that show. It's right up there for me.
Cool. I haven't watched a lot of them, although I watched a couple with you at your
Yeah.
place there.
And they're getting better. The first few seasons, you could tell, as far as resources go, the last couple seasons have been by far better production and everything. It's just a totally new level.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. Before we transition into the next thing I want to talk about, Kelly and I want to try a different beer every time we record an episode. So what's on tap today, Kel?
The Phillips Blue Buck,
Nice.
Victoria, BC.
It's good. I've had these before. They're scrumptious. And we're not sponsored by any of these beers, just so you know. But there is a blue buck on the label of this guy, so it's fitting.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you want to recommend beer to us, we'll definitely give it a go. Send us an email. Anyways,
6x6.
it's a nice one.
I think it's an elk.
It looks like an elk, actually.
They should call it Blue Elk.
Right. Let them know they fucked up.
Blue Bull.
So as we mentioned at the end of the last episode, we were going to talk a little bit about culls. So I think the biggest one in BC and Alberta right now is the Wolf Cull, and it's had a lot of attention. There's been international attention as well. So we've had fucking Miley Cyrus up here, and Pamela Anderson's been vocal about it. And that's the Wolf Cull that's happening.
I'm sure they have lots of wildlife experience.
Yeah. So I almost feel like that's worse for the cause when somebody like Miley Cyrus gets involved, because again, you're going to get a bunch of uneducated people that are chiming in.
Mm-hmm.
But Kelly and I have talked about this a little bit off the mics, but I'm not sure if we have the exact same stance on this one. So you printed off this great document, which is what's the name of this? People can look this up if they're interested in looking at it.
Yeah, it's actually the management plan for the gray wolf in British Columbia. So this is the government document, BC Ministry of Forests and Lands. It's basically how are they going to manage it for the most part using licensed hunting and conservation methods. So they have, depending on region, different types of seasons. Some of them are open bag limits. Some of them are 3.
Right.
Kind of depending on where the populations are the highest, you're going to have more liberal seasons.
Yeah. From what I've read in that document, I think the wolf population is very healthy here, which is good.
Yeah, they said, I think it was in the 70s. Oh, I guess want to say that this conversation from this document, it sounds like it's been a conversation since the 50s at least.
Wow.
Because I think they went through kind of a cull period at that time. They were using lots of poison,
trapping and all that
and
kind
trapping
of stuff. Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if the trapping was or is even effective today, but I kind of forgot where I was going with that.
That's all right. Silence is always good for radio.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, I don't know if there's any specific things. I know you've got some tabs and stuff there for certain stats, but I think as far as that document is concerned, management side of things is on track. And like I said, I'm not into wolf hunting at all. On the other hand, what's sort of written in there is that is almost part of the problem, is that there aren't a lot of guys who are interested in hunting these wolves. And that's part of the reason why the population isn't really in check with everything else.
Yeah, exactly. It's they're secretive animals and they live in remote areas. But yeah, I think part of the problem is they're allowing for seasons, but not many people are taking advantage of them. So I don't know how effective it is. Another thing in this plan is it seems they're aware that it has to be a quantitative study. It has to be scientific, and they have to be willing to alter the course of the management plan. They got to be willing to shift things
Right.
as the data comes in. So
Yeah, and I don't know how easy it is to track numbers. Like there's a pretty wide gap as far as like how many they think they are, which fair enough.
yeah,
British Columbia is large and it's I don't know how you would get into a lot of these areas to find out where wolves are. So I don't know how accurate it is, but what is it they think the population is for British Columbia roughly?
they're thinking 8,500 roughly now.
What is the range starting from and going up to? Because I think it was
It's 5,300 to 11,600. It's a big gap, but I would imagine they're using like a statistical threshold there.
yeah,
But they're estimating it at 8,500, whereas in the 70s it was estimated at 6,500. So because they are basing it on biomass, but they're also basing prey biomass, so like prey that they've found that they feel has been attacked by
yeah,
wolves. But they're also talking to like as hunters are also paying those fees for conservation. They're also the people that with boots on the ground that can
right,
provide their input, right?
yeah,
So, and you got First Nations and a lot of other folks that they can talk to, but
right,
I think so they've got population range based on density estimates, which I think that's where the studies and the surveys, all of that stuff comes from, talking to the people. And then you've got your population range based on prey biomass, which they're out there looking for killed things.
interesting.
Each one of them kind of gives them a range, and then they use that as a total range. So it seems like as difficult as it is to find out the exact number, which is probably impossible, they are pretty sure that there's no evidence showing a decline in wolves. They might not be able to know exactly how many there are, but they seem pretty certain that there's not less than there was
Right.
in the 70s.
Yeah, so I guess the key thing is the population is healthy.
Yeah.
Not so much in the Okanagan, but
Yeah, the Okanagan, out of the 8 regions in BC, Okanagan's estimated at 50 to 150 wolves. But you compare that to regions 7, 6, and 5, and you're talking anywhere from 1 to 3,000 wolves in each of those areas.
yeah.
So that's more northern BC, northeastern BC, which is kind of where the caribou are too,
Yeah.
which I think is part of the issue.
Yeah. It's such a tricky thing, man, and I don't really know.
Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to touch on what this says, though. It says the broader scientific community generally accepts that predation by wolves is the most important proximate factor limiting caribou recovery. Right. So the ultimate reason caribou have declined is likely habitat fragmentation and loss, but proximate factors such as predation continue to limit population recovery even where suitable habitat is extensive and secure relative to the size of the caribou herd. This is from the Mountain Caribou Science Team. What it sounds like is there's 2 issues. One of them is the habitat loss, which is probably the overriding concern. The only problem is finding a way to limit it, right? Because like you said, you got business, oil, forestry, all these people that I don't think it's really easy, short of lying on the road, to get them to stop doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, as people fight that battle, you potentially, as ungulates populations rise, so do the wolf populations.
Right. Goes hand in hand.
Yeah, so I don't know if it has to be a dual prong approach. I'm not debating that habitat loss isn't significant, but
There's an article I read in the Globe and Mail, and I've put it up on our Twitter page that you can read. But basically, what the findings were is that the forestry industry had a part in sort of weighing what the result was going to be, if it was going to be protecting habitat or if it was going to be
Calls.
culls. And so I feel like that was sort of, habitat was overlooked, and they just went to the wolf call because that was the easiest way and a way to protect, the forestry industry. But apparently these old growth forests are super important to the caribou population.
Mm-hmm.
If they haven't made an effort to start there and put down numbers of wolves. And again, I haven't been in any of these meetings, so I don't really know. I'm just trying to find this information for myself.
I think we're all, I think everybody's trying to find, and I think it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's Miley Cyrus, and it's probably not, you know, the straight forestry guys,
Yeah.
but it's probably somewhere in the middle. But that's my feeling anyway. But yeah, it's tough because where you get the information, it's hard to believe it because you don't know where their incentives are coming from by putting it out.
Right.
But in this plan, it says, and this is BC Ministry of Environment. To date, BC's wolf management actions have not been successful in meeting the mountain caribou objectives. Aerial reduction program for wolves that threaten caribou herds of fewer than 50 animals should be implemented. So aerial reduction program being, I'm assuming, the helicopter, right?
Yeah.
So they're saying only where there's groups of caribou that are less than 50.
Right.
I'm assuming they're making that call based on the fact that, I mean, if we don't do this, those 50 are dead.
Right.
I don't know. But the other interesting thing here is that they're saying that experience indicates that reducing wolves can benefit caribou and other ungulate populations if the reductions are intense. So 80%. So you're talking 80% of wolves in that region where those 50 caribou are, and of sufficient duration of minimum 5 years.
Wow.
So because wolves are so successful and can populate quickly and take down anything, like they're top of the food chain almost.
Yeah.
You got to remove most of them for a long period of time for ungulates to rebound. But when it says reduction cease, wolf populations and predation rates quickly recover. As a result, wolf removal should be viewed as an interim measure to forestall extirpation of caribou threatened by wolf predation while ecological conditions improve. So it sounds like they're going to take a handful of wolves. They're the sacrifice. I don't think there's any concern that wolves will go extinct in BC. I don't know if we have the answer, but
no.
I think Oscar's having a dream. He's getting chased by a wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both sides have to be willing to work together.
Yeah, exactly.
For the benefit of not only wolves, but more for caribou. I think caribou is the one that's in danger.
Yeah,
wolves are the ones that are healthy, and I to be honest, I don't worry about wolves at all. I think they are going to thrive regardless. I think it's a little bit unfortunate that maybe hunters aren't taking the opportunity that's given by the open. Like in those areas, I mean.
Yeah.
Like say you live in an area that is caribou territory.
Yeah.
And you got 3,000 wolves walking around. I mean, if I lived up there, I would be hunting them just because it's better. Like if everybody did their part, you wouldn't have to resort to shooting them out of helicopters and poisoning them, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little bit from that side, but also a little bit from the corporations saying, we're going to close these logging roads. We're going to close this down.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to reinstate this as protected. Well, working with the government.
Yeah.
This is protected land. I think every party has to give a little bit, and I mean, it's all for the benefit of the caribou and the other moose and everything else, right?
Let's put it this way, man. If it was happening here in in the Okanagan, and you and I love deer hunting.
Hmm.
If there were wolves, if we were seeing wolves everywhere and they were decimating the deer population,
Or
and
yeah, or the population was just going down, and we knew it was from the
rapidly,
wolves.
yeah.
Yeah,
So we go from you and I could go out tomorrow morning. I guarantee we would see deer if we go to the spots that we normally go. We know where they are.
yeah,
But if it started to change and we were seeing no deer and lots of wolf sign around and carcasses and everything like
yeah,
that, I might change my mind at that point and say there's
yeah,
an imbalance here, which
yeah,
might be part of our impact on these animals as well. So I think because we're involved with management, I think we have to do our part to
yeah,
help all of it. So,
yeah. And
but
if the day one chases me, I'm shooting it.
yeah, safety is a whole other thing. I don't even know. I don't recall any news of wolf attacks.
Yeah, it says it mentions that in here too, but it does say that it's rare.
Yeah. So
Um,
I hope people have learned something from what we went over there. Because we did do our research on it, I think, even though we're sort of inconclusive. It's, yeah, I think we've said enough about it. The other thing I was going to talk about, but we spent so much time on wolves, I was going to talk about the urban deer call, but I think you and I agree that that is necessary. Urban deer are a problem. And
yeah, we see them in the Okanagan all over the place.
yeah,
Like most of the bucks that I see are actually in my front yard,
yeah,
which is kind of an issue. Um, especially traffic wise. Like every day I go to work, there's usually 8 mule deer running up the side of the highway at the first corner here.
yeah.
And I'm surprised there isn't an accident there every day.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
usually an accident there every like week or two.
They're going to get fucking cranked.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a safety concern, and I think the unfortunate part is that we're sort of responsible for it because people are not, you know. Well, we live in the Okanagan, which is like, there's orchards and stuff everywhere, so it's such an easy place for them to access food. So again, I think the populations are healthy enough that urban deer, if they become a problem, need to be removed. I don't think we really need to talk about this one too much, but
Mm-hmm. I think we're kind of on the same page with this
yeah.
one.
Some of the things I read though that again that gets people upset, and this is where I wish people would be more careful. And people had witnessed like a fawn being killed and not in the best way, and I don't even want to see that really. You know what I mean? Seeing a young animal sort of
Mm-hmm.
taken out in a poor way. So it's all about how you approach these things, and again, it's those. I'm sure the majority of the way they're culled is fine, but when somebody witnesses something brutal, they're gonna remember that too. Like it's just
Yeah.
not good. So
Yeah.
it's all about how you approach these things. But urban deer are a problem.
Mm-hmm.
W- I,
In
I,
our like we see
we
it
see it.
firsthand.
So yeah, exactly that. And I think that's where we differ on the wolf thing because we don't
Yeah.
see it in that. So
Yeah.
um, we wanted to talk about bear hunting, which is also sort of controversial, more so about grizzly bear hunting, but we're not interested in that. It's more so black bear hunting.
Yeah, I don't. As much as I'd like to sit and observe a grizzly bear in the wild, I don't really feel like being close to one.
I've only seen one, and it was in Jasper National Park in Alberta, which is beautiful.
Amazing,
Yeah. And it was sort of hilarious, but not hilarious. So it was actually a grizzly cub. And these fucking Japanese tourists had pulled over on the side of the road and they were chasing it with their cameras. So this is a grizzly cub.
Yeah.
So mama's around somewhere. And so I was just like shaking my head, like, you guys, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're chasing a cub with your camera. And that could go poorly in a hurry.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need to educate these tourists that you don't chase grizzly bears around, even though it's
Mhm.
cool to see them. But yeah, grizzlies are a whole other thing. But Kelly and I have gone back and forth. I think we even talked about this last year because the thing is, we're in March right now, so hunting season, rifle season for deer, and that ended at the end of December. So we're itching to get out there. So last year the topic of black bear hunting came up, and it's come up again. Last year I wasn't into it. I was just sort of looking for a way to go out and hunt, but
Mhm.
I've done more reading and I'm starting to come around to the idea of it. The thing that always is a roadblock for me is the idea of trichinosis, but I've done again more reading on that.
Mhm.
And there's certain ways you can sort of avoid that, and obviously properly cooking it, and if you're doing using it for pepperoni and sausage or any kind of dried or cured
Yeah.
meats like that, it's the risk is pretty low.
Yeah. Well, I started thinking, I think what changed my mind was just, I read an article and it talked about chicken.
Yeah,
Like you're not going to eat chicken unless it's cooked to 160, right? There's just no negotiation there.
yeah,
And they just said, just treat your bear meat the same way.
yeah. Makes
There's
sense.
lots of food that you just have to cook to 160 to kill everything. And if you do that with bear, you have nothing to worry
Yeah.
about. The only thing is, I'm not looking forward to, I hope we don't get into a situation where you get into the bear meat when you're going through the process and you see worms.
Worms, fuck
But,
yeah.
I mean, that would kind of put me off, I think.
So what?
I
That's
don't,
one thing I don't really know about is what do you do when you come across that? You just cut it off or what?
I don't think that it's as common as, I think it's, I don't know. My feeling is not as common as
Right.
we hear, but um, I've heard that you just kind of go through with the process and you cook it.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't think they're. I don't know how big these worms are,
I'm
but
picturing like maggots, man. That's what I'm
yeah.
picturing in my head. And
No, I
obviously
think
it wouldn't
I think they're smaller.
pretty small.
I'm picturing like 5 millimeter by 1 millimeter.
Right. Yeah, here's the thing is I think you and I could get over it, but if our wives saw that or knew about it, they wouldn't touch it.
No,
And I'm not sure
I mean
what.
I'd have a hard time touching it, but
Yeah.
I just wouldn't tell them.
Yeah.
I think I'd go the pepperoni route
Mm-hmm.
in that case. Um, I think if you do cook it to a certain temperature, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's just more of a mental thing.
Yeah.
I'd hate to waste meat, but
I never want it.
it's
Yeah.
just tough, Matt. Like if I saw that, it might be the last bear that I hunt.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, this kind of the good thing. Um, like we are hunters now, but I feel like we still have some of the tendencies of non-hunters. Like we're still working through that
Oh, definitely.
transition, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool time. Like last year, like you said, didn't want anything to do with bear hunting. Part of it's just we didn't have the experience,
Yeah.
and we also heard horror stories. This year, there's kind of a bunch of other things happening. We want to get out there early. We're a little more open to the bear hunt, and we've talked to more people and read more articles
Yeah.
about it. So I don't know. Maybe we see how this season goes, and then
Yeah. And I think we're sort of more focused on a spring bear hunt, and from what we've read, that's sort of the time to do it, especially if they've been feeding on berries and that, right?
yeah,
Where you get into poor bear meat is probably when you get into September and October when they've been, when there's spawning fish and that, and they've been eating all these dead fish. Apparently, the meat is going to taste like dead fish, basically,
mm-hmm.
if that's what they've been eating. But if they've been, if their main intake has been, you know, strawberries and
Spring,
raspberries and all that kind of wild stuff that we have around here,
yeah,
they're going to be fantastic. And in Ranella's book, we'll mention Ranella again. He said it's sort of like it right in between beef and pork. So it sounds like it's
that sounds
amazing.
good to me.
Yeah, amazing meat.
Yeah,
And he also talks about taking the fat. There's a lot of fat on the bear, and you can actually cook that fat down, and you can use that for all kinds of cooking. And you can even
mm-hmm.
cook the bear meat in the bear fat. And the fat is apparently, if their diet has been, like we said, berries in that, then
Mm-hmm.
it tastes fantastic. So I like cooking
Okay.
with duck fat and that. So like that idea appeals to me for sure. So the more I read about it again, the more interested I got. So we were on the fence for a while there, but I think within the last 2 weeks, we've both decided that we're gonna go ahead with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be exciting to kind of,
It's a fun time to be out there too.
yeah,
Like it kind of goes back to the whole if you don't get anything, it's still fun.
yeah,
I don't know. Let's call it bear hunting, and I'm doing it to get a bear and to get some meat.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, if we don't get a bear or any meat, I'm
I
kind of
don't
pumped
care,
that we
yeah.
spent the whole spring out there, and
Yeah,
it'll be a whole new feel, right?
yeah,
Yeah, trees changing in the opposite direction.
yeah,
Bunch of animals to observe and see
yeah.
their
And
spring behavior, and
we're likely going to be checking out new areas that we haven't been in. I don't think we're going to be going in where we've been hunting deer. We're probably going to go a little higher up, and check out some of those areas. So we're going to explore some new terrain and maybe even find spots where we can hunt moose and deer and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, I think the thing we get excited about is more so just being outside. Really, it's not just hunting; it's just basically an excuse to be out there.
for sure.
Yeah, um, yeah. I don't know. I guess it wasn't too much of a conversation. We've made up our minds that
I think that'll be a future episode.
yeah, it will be neat to sort of again. I wish we'd started recording the podcast like a few weeks before we got our hunting licenses and kind of had that shift. But like I said, we can get other guys in here and use them as guinea pigs for that experiment. But at least we can do that with bear hunt. And we've only got the one white-tailed doe, so we're still really new. So there's, we want to get a moose, we want to get an elk, we want to get all these things. So there's going to be a lot more. Yeah, buck. So there's going to be so many more stories. And even we sort of just talked about, some main highlights of our first season and a half.
Yeah.
There's a lot more stories than that. Of course, the main things are opportunities that we talked about, but yeah, I can only imagine the stories that we're gonna have from this point on. It's exciting to think about.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. After spring, we'll have some stories, learning experiences for sure.
Yeah.
Different animals, different terrain.
Yeah, and I brought up a fly rod, so you got into fly fishing last year. I've always been into.
I'm actually more excited about the fly fishing than anything else right now.
So we can combine bear hunting and.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
First, a fly fishing trip with a bear tag in our pocket and the rifle in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got some spots planned out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. So we've covered lots of stuff. Do you want to get into gear before we call it a day?
Yeah, for sure.
So where do we start? Yeah, we really narrowed it down. We both sort of came to the same conclusion that optics are probably number one, right?
Footwear,
number two.
Yeah,
and then clothing would have been number three. Obviously,
and I throw pack into that too.
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously, a rifle is up there too, but that's kind of just goes without saying, right? But
yeah, pretty much.
Season 1 for us was kind of a joke, and I mentioned this in the first episode that I had a pair of binoculars that belonged to my dad, and they were fucking awful. Like I couldn't see shit out of those. And if you can't see anything, man, like what's the point? And you didn't even have any, so you were relying on me with this shitty pair of binoculars, and they were good enough, I guess, to sort of get by with, but you always want to eliminate any doubt if you can.
Yeah.
And
technically you don't want to hunt with someone that doesn't have binoculars, but we kind of knew that, and I wouldn't take the gun off my shoulder unless
we're 100% sure. Yeah.
But that's always something we're a little worried about, is like who's using their optics incorrectly. It's kind of a safety issue.
Yeah, definitely.
That's kind of why I put optics at the top. not only that, but to buy time.
Yeah, and money is obviously a factor in all of this, and you don't need to go out and buy everything, but I think it's important to go out there and spend a decent chunk of change on a good pair of binoculars because you're not really anything without those unless you're within a
Mm-hmm.
certain, you know, yardage where you can
Yeah.
determine. But yeah, why again, just eliminating any doubt or area risk of shooting something that you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
So we both have Vortex. What's the model?
Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks.
I think they're
Couple hundred.
1042s,
Yeah,
which they're only a couple $100, which is cheap in the optics
it
world,
is. Yeah.
and they're solid.
So going from the pair that I had to those,
Yeah,
oh my God, man,
big difference.
it's huge.
Going from the pair I didn't have to those, huge.
Yeah. So I highly recommend those. There's, yeah, like they're pretty amazing,
Yeah.
really.
Lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
Vortex. I bought my scope in a Vortex brand too, and I don't know. I'm just impressed with them. Lifetime warranty on everything. They say you just like drop it out of your truck or whatever, and
Yeah.
they'll just replace it for
Yeah.
you.
No
No
questions asked.
questions.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds like a good deal to me.
for sure. So yeah, I would highly, highly recommend Vortex for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's all we need to say about optics. Really, don't buy something cheap and shitty.
The only other thing I can think of with optics is the scope.
Yeah,
My scope's 2.5 by 10 to 10.
right.
I'm not sure what yours is.
I
I think
don't
it's
even know.
it's in that range.
It's in that range.
It's within 2 and 10.
It's
Um,
it was just the one that was on my rifle. It's a Burns scope. I don't really know much about it, but it works.
Yeah, I think that range is fine for people that are going to be hunting within, 300 to 400 is probably pushing it, but 300 yards. I don't think we're planning on hunting much further than that.
No.
So yeah, I don't think you really have to go for the big. I was kind of thinking about the 414 scope. I don't know. It's nice to reel it back and have that 2 magnification, just a wide field of view.
Explain the numbers to people that might not understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so you've got I think mine is 2.5 to 10, which means 2.5 magnification to 10 magnification. And there's an objective lens there as well. So I think mine's 2.5 to 10 by 42 or by 50. Can't remember now. The bigger the objective lens basically means the wider diameter that lens is going to be at the end.
Right.
Like your scope's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Which lets in more light.
More light, yeah.
So
And more weight.
right.
So there's a little bit of a balance there, but yeah, as far as magnification goes, I don't think you need anything more than 10 if you're going to be hunting within 300 yards.
Yeah.
I have looked through a crazy Night Force scope that was like 22 times or something at the range, and he had it dialed in at 300 yards, and the scope is just amazing. Like the lines, the crosshairs on my scope, they will block out a lot of that target that's behind the crosshair at distances over 350 yards.
Okay, yeah.
But with that scope, the crosshairs were just you could hardly even see them. They were just so precise. You could see that whole object behind them, and it's a whole new level. But those things are $2 or $3 grand a scope. Right?
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Excuse me. And that's the thing, like, I'm always afraid to look through these things. You know what I mean? Because once you've looked into it, you're like, shit, what am I dealing with? Because like I said, going from those binoculars that I had to the Diamondbacks, it was like, what the fuck? Like, it's an eye opener. It's like what you could be working with. So my scope is working for me right now. I don't want to look through yours and be like, damn, I need to
I'm sure
upgrade
yours is
here.
fine.
But yeah,
Until when we start shooting 400 yards, then you might,
yeah, I might want to switch it
but
up.
I probably would too.
Yeah. Um, Footwear.
Yeah, footwear. That's super important. Probably the most important thing.
It's like right there with like if you have a decent for the first season I had a pair of hiking boots that I had broken in and they were okay. Like they got me through the first season.
Mhm.
But I trashed them because they weren't good boots. They were like $120 boots, and by the end of the season I'd had them in snow and everything like that. They were just fuck. They were garbage after
Yeah,
that. So
and we didn't do a lot of like we didn't necessarily do the big backpacking trip,
yeah,
right? Like if you're gonna go backpacking for a week or two, well, 3 to 5 days,
yeah,
it would be more typical for
yeah.
us. But I mean, I don't know. I'm sure some guys go out to Alaska for a couple weeks at a
If
time
I
or
could
whatever.
go away for 2 weeks, I definitely would.
Yeah, but if you're gonna do stuff like that, it becomes a safety issue. You need to have good boots, not only for packing stuff out, but for getting to and from where you need to go
Yeah,
without a bunch of blisters and everything
yeah,
else, which I kind of have experience with because I ended up buying some.
yeah. We have two totally different pairs of boots, which is kind of
Yeah,
cool. What did
it'd
you
be nice
get?
to have both.
Yeah,
It'd be nice to have 3 pairs of boots, like a winter boot, pack boot kind of setup,
yeah,
which I guess that's not too unrealistic. I don't think they're that much money. And then a summer boot
yeah,
that's waterproof but not necessarily insulated
yeah.
and a little more flexible, maybe, unless you're going crazy.
That's kind of what that pair that I was saying that I trashed. I kept them.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to that.
Yeah, they're just light and they're okay
Yeah,
for September kind of thing,
yeah,
right?
like
But
a normal hiking boot
yeah,
kind of.
yeah,
And then what I bought was the Loa Tibet boot.
right.
And those suckers, I've never owned a boot like that. They feel like a ski boot.
They're
The
pretty
sole
firm.
is
Yeah,
just like you cannot bend that thing. Like try to twist it and torque it with your hands. It won't bend. And it's taken me quite a long time to break those things in. And we went on that one kind of a backpacking trip last year,
yeah.
or it was at least a few day camping trip with a lot of hiking involved, including
Ton
a
of
20
hiking.
kilometer day. I made it through and I was kind of working those boots in at that point already, but I would not recommend anyone to buy those boots or anything like them and go on a trip and walk 20 kilometers
Yeah,
because
right out
you'll
of the
just be
store. Yeah,
dying in those things.
yeah,
Like they need work to work those things in.
yeah. So the boots that I ended up with are Irish Setter elk trackers, which is a leather boot. Definitely nowhere near as firm as the ones that you have. And it's going to be different for everybody. But the day that I put those boots on, they felt amazing. Like they were
Mm-hmm.
meant for me, basically. And they're 600 gram insulation, so they're really warm.
Mm-hmm.
But even I found them to be good. Even our October trip was pretty warm, and I felt fine even then. And
Right.
there was only one day uh, last year in November, I think it was, where we were sitting on a colder day in the snow there,
Mm-hmm.
and my feet just kind of started to get cold, but
Yeah.
not cold enough to sort of ruin the day or anything like that.
Yeah.
All we need to do is start moving again, and that was fine.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I expected my boots to be cold in the winter. They actually aren't insulated,
Oh,
but they do have that sole that is just rock solid and it's very thick. And I think that because the sole protects your foot from the cold coming up from the
right.
ground, it actually you don't need as much insulation for that type of boot, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
But I think when your feet started getting cold there, my feet were starting to get cold too.
Yeah.
But yeah, boots. It's nice to have a few pair, but they're pricey items. So
Yeah, the elk trackers were $300,
yeah,
and I don't know what yours were.
I think they were four. I think they're regular like four something, but then you got tax.
Yeah.
It's wait for something to come on sale.
Yeah, it always
That's the
does.
key.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I was able to get a bit of a deal on my boots, but yeah.
Mhm.
Anyways, I should have them for a while, and I take care of them. They're leather, so I keep the mink oil on them and try and keep
Yeah.
them. I fucking love them, man. They're like one of my favorite possessions. My
Yeah.
wife gets mad because I spend so much time like cleaning them and
Nice.
oiling them up, but yeah, it was an investment. It's $300, so obviously I'm going to take care of those boots, and
For sure.
I want to have them for a long time and that. But yeah, it's if you're not comfortable and you got blisters and you don't have the right boots or you didn't break them in, your hunt is over.
Hmm.
And you can't do the hike that we did, like a 20-kilometer hike. You're going to be fucked, and
Hmm.
you're not going to be having fun if you don't have a good pair of
Yeah, and
boots.
you're gonna resort to duct taping your feet up and all that crap
Yeah,
beforehand, which I actually did for that hike.
that
Just because I
almost,
was a little nervous, we hadn't done that type of trip
yeah,
before, so I thought, screw this, I'm gonna pull all the tricks out of the bag and try to avoid getting blisters in the first place.
yeah,
Um, but it actually worked out okay. They weren't quite as bad as I thought. They're definitely worked in now.
good.
So kind of looking forward to this season.
Yeah,
But
they only get better. Um,
and then what was the next thing? Clothing.
Clothing. So head to toe, I've basically got merino wool. So a majority of that is icebreaker stuff. Also found these $20 uh, long sleeve shirts at Costco,
Yeah.
which they're not a blend, they're 100% merino wool. So
Mhm.
that was a good score because icebreaker stuff is really expensive. Um,
Mhm.
but having a good base layer is obviously key, and the merino wool is fantastic. So another thing you want to sort of invest in.
Yeah, it's good for hot days and also for cold days.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've always felt like wearing those. Obviously, you dress in layers, but I've always been able to sort of control my temperature wearing that. And
Mhm.
I was even, I had a pair of icebreaker long johns on, and I was in San Francisco. So we got up early in the morning and it was quite cold. So I put those on underneath my pants. But by the time it was midday, it was scorching out. But my wife was making fun of me. She's like, "Oh my God, you're wearing those long johns." But I was actually like still pretty comfortable. But like in
Mhm.
the morning, I was nice and warm, and daytime, it's still, I wasn't sweating my bag off or anything like that. So
And they don't absorb scent either, so
yeah, so
'cause
you
you don't have to
sweaty
wash them.
balls. It was all good.
Yeah.
The main thing for me is like the last 2 seasons, my fucking hands have been freezing. So I
Yeah,
think I've got a fingered gloves, and I had these icebreaker thin
Mhm.
merino wool gloves, which were dog shit. Don't buy those because my fingers broke through them
Mm.
just from light wear and tear, basically. And I had bought a pair for my wife, and same thing with her. She just basically runs with them on, and her fingers broke through them as well. So I don't
Mm.
recommend those. But anyways, while they were functional, they were warm. But I think I need to switch to a mitt this year because
Yeah.
if you're wearing a glove, you're not gonna be able to shoot with it on anyway. So wearing a mitt, if you got to pull it off to take the shot, whatever, not a big deal.
Yep.
Having cold hands suck, and I don't know. I don't know if that's part of getting older. My hands used to be pretty good in the cold, but I can't handle it anymore, and I hate sitting there with cold
Mm.
hands. It sucks.
Just bring a bunch of heat packs.
Those are good too. You got to sort of plan ahead and get those in
Yeah.
there. But
I kind of want to get some of those chopper mitts,
yeah,
like the leather old yellow
actually, I was looking at those the other day. I
mitts.
should have bought some. Yeah,
Where do you see them?
they had them at Costco. Actually,
Oh, really?
Costco's got everything.
Yeah, I want to get some of those because you just stuff wool gloves inside of them,
Yeah,
and if you get them wet, you pull out those ones, you put new ones in.
yeah,
Like it's just
and
a
they're cheap.
very yeah, and they're warm.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I hear good things about those. That's the old school glove, but
yeah,
sometimes old school is the best way.
yeah. And the toques that we have are merino wool too, and they don't look like much.
Yeah,
But goddamn, those are warm.
yeah, they're paper thin, and I was wearing one at like -17.
Yeah, I remember that day.
Yeah. And I don't know, I still have my hood on my jacket, but that little toque, I was amazed. I had to take my hood off just to test it out. Minus 17 degrees Celsius, and I mean, I could stand out there for an hour with that little toque
Yeah,
on.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, like, I don't have much for a jacket, but I've been okay. Like,
Yeah.
I've got a jacket that I can bring out, but I've always been fine. And I would like to have a nice waterproof shell and even a waterproof pair of pants. But the thing is, they're fucking loud, so you don't
They're
want to be
loud.
wearing
Yeah.
those all the time. So that's not the first thing I'd be going after. But
Yeah. I have a waterproof shell. It's loud, obviously, but it's definitely nice.
throw it in the pack, and if you
Yeah,
need
and
it,
maybe you could do more of a glassing strategy. I'd like to get a little um tarp, like a, what do they call those? Fly tarps.
yeah,
And maybe we could set up in an area. If it just starts downpouring, then throw the shell on, put the fly tarp up, and just scope long distance for a little while.
yeah,
But I also have some rain pants. I just went to Sport Check and bought some like $40 rain pants that I could throw over top of my hunting pants.
nice.
And that's just, at that point, if I think I have to put those on, I'm kind of considering that any close range hunting is pretty much over.
Right.
It's more just I want to stay dry for the
Yeah.
next day kind of thing.
I brought the that rain gear with us when we were in the park last year. That red stuff,
Yeah.
which is really heavy to carry around, but we got stuck in this crazy downpour, and I threw that stuff on, and I was dry and warm. So
I was
it's
too lazy
loud
to
and-
take my boots off so I could put those rain pants
Oh,
on.
yeah.
So I didn't put my rain pants on. I ended up with my hunting pants soaked, and they
Yeah.
were still wet the next day, which is always great.
Bummer, yeah,
But it was decently warm.
yeah,
Like it was still early October, so it wasn't a
Yeah,
safety issue. But
it can turn into one though. So you
Yeah,
gotta
it could.
keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But cool. And then I guess I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to clothing, but
no,
it's
but
basically
the
just a
pack
good.
is important, I
Right.
think. If you're going to be going backcountry hunting, I think I can't remember how many cubic inch my pack is. It's got to be 3,500 or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But it's kind of interesting. The bigger pack you get, the more crap you carry.
Right.
So it's kind of good to keep that in mind. Like pack, considering you have a smaller pack, and just leave the empty room as empty room.
Yeah.
It's easier on your body walking around, and then when you do get an animal, you got all this extra space. But yeah, and I bought a Badlands Sacrifice, which is good. It's a lightweight pack.
Yeah.
It's a good size. I think it's just good all around. But packs are another thing you can spend a whole whack of money on. Mystery Ranch packs, Exo Mountain Gear, all these packs that
yeah.
have modules and everything you can attach to them.
I've been looking at packs like crazy, and I still
Yeah.
don't know what I want.
I think if I could buy another one, it'd probably be Exo Mountain Gear, because they have the titanium frame, and you can actually switch out different packs onto the frame.
They're pretty sweet.
They got tons of accessories, but they also got a lot of colors too. Like if you don't want a camo pack, you can get silver,
I'm not into
brown, or
camo,
that kind
but
of stuff,
yeah.
right? So I don't. And they're also made. I think they're from Idaho or something.
Nice.
They're kind of close, I thought. But
Could drive down
if I
there.
could buy another one, it'd be something like that. It just sucks that the dollar is so crappy.
Yeah.
Because you'd almost have to order it right from direct, right?
Right.
But yeah.
Cool.
I don't know anything. I don't think I have anything else regarding clothing.
Yeah. We've covered a lot of shit today. I was originally trying to keep these to an hour, but I think you and I just love talking about hunting so much. Like, if I wasn't looking over at the computer right now, like how long is it ago? We could just keep going and going and going.
Mm-hmm.
But I was gonna start talking about our rifles, but I think we can save that for the next one, maybe.
The only thing I should mention with optics, because we did talk about it,
Yeah.
is the lens pen.
Oh, right.
Which is
That's
for
key.
cameras, lenses.
Yeah.
But it's just a little pen. And it's got a brush on one side and a little squeegee thing on the other side.
Yeah.
And you can use it for your scopes, your binoculars, anything you breathe on by accident or get dirt all over or snow or whatever. Just squeegee that thing around. It'll look just like it came out of the store.
Kelly pulled that out a couple of times last year, and it saved our asses.
Yeah. Best
And
$12 investment.
Yeah,
you'll
$12
make.
bucks. And it's like, I couldn't believe how clean it got. It was like out of the factory clean,
Mhm.
basically. So best $12 you'll ever spend. I need to go pick one up.
Yeah, we use that on when we traveled, because I've got a camera, a DSLR, and lenses on those things catch everything, right?
Yeah.
So if you're near the ocean or whatever, there's salt and
Yeah.
water dries on them and everything. But yeah, those things will clean any lens to store quality, like brand
Definitely.
new.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Well,
That's all I got.
good. So, blue buck, tasty.
Yep.
We haven't really made a plan for episode 3, but I'm hoping to get Corey in here. What's Corey's last name? Do you not know either?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I can't remember.
You're gonna
now.
forget. So Corey, I consider a friend, but I was introduced to him through Kelly, and I don't know if we've really mentioned his name, but we're sort of the Kelly and I and Corey, the trio that went to the core and PAL training courses together. He's got it.
Davies.
Dave, yeah, I knew that too. What the fuck? So yeah, we're hoping to get him in because he didn't hunt with us at all, or you went out with him once or twice.
Yeah, I've been out with him a few times actually.
Yeah.
He took me to some of his spots, which is always appreciated. Like people aren't, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of hunters would be hesitant to bring new people to their spots. So, yeah, he's a good guy for sure.
Yeah. So he, I think he was successful the first year.
Yep.
And he was probably successful the second year. And he actually drew some tags and everything like that. So
yeah, I don't think he was successful on his tags, but we can talk to him about that
cool
stuff. Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, we want to get him in here and sort of see if his experiences were similar to ours and see what he learned. And like I said, I don't know if it's his brother or his brother-in-law is a conservation officer. So they were going out together, from what I understand, or a little bit maybe.
Yeah, he definitely has a little more of a support system in terms of people that live in town with him that have a history in hunting or working in the industry.
And we're just out there winging it. So
we are out there winging it for sure. Like we can go back to the Kootenays and hunt with my father-in-law a little bit, and you have some family friends that are still hunting. So maybe we can do a little more of that this year.
Yeah, it's rewarding to get out there on your own, but you can sort of save yourself some time by going with guys who know what they're doing. And I don't know, we've learned so much. It's been really cool, sort of just hitting the dirt on your own and figuring it out. But again, if somebody can show you some shit, then why not? Anyways, I think we'll probably call this an episode. I hope you found it interesting. Our email address, if you want to correct anything that we said, again, we're not experts, so and if you want to suggest topics for other shows or anything like that, it's the Rookie Hunter Podcast at gmail.com. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Just search us, you'll find us. Any final thoughts, Cal?
Nothing.
We got it. We talked like crazy tonight. So thanks a lot for joining us. Happy hunting.
Cheers.
See you next week.